Yes, guys. Yesterday I was talking about Spring Bean scopes, guys. In Spring 5.x, total 6 scopes are given. Singleton, prototype, request, session, application, and WebSocket. If no scope is given, default scope is what? Singleton scope. Yeah. What do you mean by singleton scope? If Spring Bean class scope is singleton, IOC container creates only one object and gives that object reference across the multiple calls to say factory.getBean method with the same bean ID. That means it creates Spring Bean class object and it keeps that object reference in what? Internal cache of IOC container, so that you will get same object reference across the multiple calls. Okay, it does not make Spring Bean class as singleton Java class, just gives singleton behavior for Spring Bean class object with respect to particular bean ID. This is very important. And if no scope is specified, default scope is what? Singleton scope. And yesterday we have seen so many concepts with respect to singleton scope only. So again, today we'll continue the same thing, guys. Yes, let me announce before I forget. Tomorrow onwards, 11 o'clock, React Angular 11 classes are happening. Okay, joined, those who joined for those courses and looking for Angular classes as parallel classes, tomorrow onwards they can start attending. Tomorrow onwards they can start attending. I think details are there in the group, guys. Meeting ID, password, all the details are there in the group and you can collect from the group. React also we will start very soon. Don't worry. No, Hibernate is 9 o'clock. Hibernate is 9 o'clock. No, just now my people sent it now, boss. Where is that? It is reflecting in the mobile but not coming here. How come? So, yeah, you can attend later also. You can attend later also. Not a problem. No, this is not the link. Just a minute. I'll make sure that it is there. Refresh. Yes, this one, look at this, guys. Yes, I pasted the details. You please collect. Okay, guys. Scope is equal to singleton. Scope is equal to singleton. Yeah, now listen carefully. Yesterday we discussed it. Fine, boss. Let us talk about this one. What happens? What happens if we configure singleton Java class as real singleton Java class as Spring Bean having singleton scope? Real singleton Java class as Spring Bean having singleton scope. Understanding my statement? Okay. Now let me create that situation, boss. Let me create that situation. But one small issue is there. Singleton Java class is having private constructor. Do you think IOC container can create object for singleton Java class by accessing private constructor? First of all, let me ask one question. Who creates object for Spring Bean IOC container? Yes. How IOC container create object? By loading class by calling new instance method. While when you call new instance method, internally constructor will be executed or not? Internally constructor will be called. What do you say, guys? No doubt internally constructor will be called. Super. Now tell me. So do you think private constructor is available to call from outside the class? Do you think a new instance method will get access to private constructor of singleton class to call from outside of the class? No. So do you think IOC container will get success in creating object of singleton Java class, boss? Okay. Generally answer looks like no. But IOC container is very strong one, boss, very powerful one. It internally uses reflection API to get access to private constructor. To get access to private constructor. Got the point? That's why it will happily create object of what? Spring Bean class, though it is having private constructor. Seriously, sir? Yes, you feel it? So now I am taking real singleton class, guys. Yeah, today I'll commit the code, don't worry. I want everyone to download and save the copy of notes in your computer system. Okay, we are working out small problems that are there with the Google Classroom. When I upload the image, it is coming as a blur image. Once that problem is sorted out, I'll again keep the notes in the Google Classroom. Till that time, please cooperate and collect the notes from this one. All screens are there in the, all entire thing is there in the Facebook. In FB group, I uploaded from day one onwards. If you don't know how to see it, leave it. Okay. Yes, boss. Now tell me here. I'm taking this one, paste. Here is my printer.java. com.nt.cfgs, boss. com.nt.cfgs. Now I am configuring bean id p1 class is equal to com.nt.sdp.printer com.nt.sdp.printer. bean id p1 class is equal to com.nt.sdp.printer. Is that clear, guys? Yes. No, I think yesterday we have taken what, guys? Oh, beans only, na? Fine. We'll take beans only. Then we'll go for beans. Beans. Okay. Sysout. Sysout. Oh, no, listen. Okay, I think I'll comment this part also. Printer P1 factory dot get bean of, okay, P1 printer dot class. Printer dot class. Default scope is singleton only. I'll try to access twice, boss. Here is my P2. Sysout P1 dot hash code, P2 dot hash code. Setter injection test. See, guys, definitely object is created. Only one object is created, but definitely object is created. But thing is, please observe, printer is having which class, which constructor? Private constructor. Printer is having private constructor. Are you realizing it? That means IOC container is internally using reflection API to get access to private constructor and uses that private constructor to create the object. Are you listening that statement, boss? Okay. So what happens if you configure real singleton Java class as Spring Bean having singleton scope? What is the answer, guys? What is the answer? The answer is IOC container creates object object of singleton Java class. singleton Java class by getting access to reflection API, by getting access to private constructor using reflection API, by getting access to private constructor using reflection API, using reflection API. Using reflection API. Copy these guys. Reflection API and keeps that object reference in the internal cache. In the internal cache of IOC container. In the internal cache of IOC container. Yes. This is my application context.xml. So don't keep surprising face. Yesterday's printer class is given, same printer class, guys. So in client application, what guys? In client application, in client application, yes. What is this? Gives same hash code. Gives same hash code. Nice, boss. Internal code. Internal code. Now tell me. First it loads the class, guys. Load class. Load class. How does it load the class? Class C is equal to class dot for name of com dot nt dot beans dot printer, which is a singleton class. Next. Get access to all declared construct. Get access to all declared constructors. All constructors. Come on. Yeah, reflection API is part of core Java, boss. Reflection API is useful to get the internals of any given class. Constructor CONS array is equal to C dot get declared. Array. Why this question coming Govardhan Reddy today? In the initial class itself, we discussed about reflection API. Every day, fresh day, na boss. C dot get declared constructors. We will get access to, come on guys. We will get access to all the constructors of the printer class. What do you say, guys? All the constructors of the printer class. Are you listening my statement, boss? Right. But right now there is only one constructor, boss. So you will get access to only one element. You'll be getting array having only one element. What is this object? Constructor object. Each object of constructor class represent one constructor. Each object of method class represents one method. Class name itself method. Class name itself constructor. Class name itself class. Please accept it. Constructor object refers private constructor. Refers private constructor of printer class. Yeah. Tell me guys, by default, do you have access to private constructors? No. get access to private constructor. It is not making private constructor as public constructor, but we are having access to private constructor. CONS of 0 dot set accessible true. CONS of 0 dot set accessible true. This is most important, guys. If it is a public constructor, no need of calling this method. Since it's a private constructor, yes, we have to call this. CONS of 0. Come on, we are getting access to private constructor. Cool, guys. Next. Perform instantiation. Now perform instantiation. How, guys? Printer P1 is equal to printer of CONS of 0 dot new instance of. CONS of 0 dot new instance of. So definitely object is created. Are you listening my statement, guys? This kind of code is internally used. Already I have given remaining code. Only this line is extra. This line is extra. Are you understanding my statement? If someone asks you the question, can we take Spring Bean class having only private constructors? Can we take Spring Bean class having only private constructors? Tell me, my dear, possible or not possible? Yes, possible. Yes, possible. Because IOC container takes the support of reflection API to get access to private constructors while performing instantiation of Spring Bean. Instantiation of Spring Bean class. Instantiation of Spring Bean class. Generally, when you listen this question, if you don't experiment, if you don't discuss this, you will be tempted to give the answer not possible. IOC container throws exception. This is the mindset we are having. Moreover, if you test servlet container, boss, if you ask servlet container to create object of our servlet class by keeping private constructor in the servlet class, servlet container throws exception. Servlet container seriously throws exception. Understanding my point? Surendra Kumar, new instance method is now having access to private constructor. That's the reason it is creating object. New instance is not new. Access to private constructor is the new. Surendra, please improve your core Java fundamentals. New instance is not getting access to private constructor, boss. We are already accessing private constructor. New instance uses that constructor and creates the object. Fine. Servlet container always fails to create object of servlet class if the servlet class is having only private constructor. But IOC container is more powerful than servlet container, boss. Though it is having, Spring Bean is having private constructor, it will get access to private constructor and creates the object. Is that clear, guys? Super. Okay, so many people are thinking that new instance is doing magic. No. This line is doing magic because of that private constructor accessibility is there for new instance method. That's the reason new instance is creating object. Is that clear, guys? Okay, next. What happens What happens if we configure real singleton Java class? All these are very, very interesting FAQs, guys. Real singleton Java class has multiple spring beans with different bean IDs. With different bean IDs. With different bean IDs. With different bean IDs. Speak out, my dears. With the different bean IDs. So when I say real singleton class, guys, I'm talking about minimum standards one. Minimum standards one. I'm talking about minimum standard singleton. Here also, I'm talking about minimum standards singleton. Yes, boss. Now tell me here, minimum standard singleton. Any guess? Any guess? Tell me, one object will be created or multiple objects will be created? One object is created or multiple objects will be created? Definitely multiple objects will be created because we have multiple bean IDs now, boss. Definitely multiple objects will be created. Let's go there. P1, P2. P1, P2. Okay, now come here. Yes. Yes. Okay. P11 I will take here to avoid the confusion. Done. Next one is what? P2. P22 you take, guys. Here also P2. P2 dot hash code. P22 dot hash code. Now observe, one object will be created or two objects will be created. Singleton scope creates one object with respect to each bean ID. Even though class name is same, it won't bother. Here one object, here one object. For first P11 is having same hash code. Okay, P2 and P22 is having same hash code. Did you notice that, boss? Did you observe that, boss? Are you listening my statement? Yes, both are getting access to private. So indirectly we are breaking singleton behavior or not. Using the reflection API support, we are breaking singleton behavior, right? Okay, nice, boss. Yes, I said, we will discuss in multiple angles, don't worry. Application context dot XML. But listen. I'll give one more interesting job, guys. This is the story. Keep this one in a comment mode. Take the copy of them. Ask IOC container not to create object by directly using constructor. Ask IOC container create object by calling factory method. IOC container, don't try to use constructor directly to create object. Please, a constructor, please create object by calling static factory method. Given static factory method. Are you understanding my statement? So then there is an attribute called factory-method get instance. Again, there is an attribute called factory-method get instance. Okay, now look at this situation, guys. Look at this way. Now IOC container don't call constructor directly, boss. Don't use constructor directly. It will try to create object of this printer class by calling printer.get instance. Here also printer.get instance. Are both the time same get instance is called. That too in the same JVM. So what happens? First time it will create and return object. Second time it will return the existing object, though you change the bean ID. Second time, okay, it will return existing object because both the time same get instance method is called in the same JVM. Are you listening? Now you observe. Both together create same object. This is also very interesting one. This is very interesting one. Come on. So what is the answer for this question, guys? If you make IOC container, if you make IOC container to perform bean instantiation by accessing constructor directly, okay, multiple objects will be created. Multiple objects will be created. Are you getting my point? Right. But if you make IOC container to perform bean instantiation only through static factory methods, only through static factory method of singleton class, then only one object will be created. I hope you convinced, boss. Okay, now let's see the internals first. Then let's see the internals first. Okay, factory dot get bean p1 printer dot class. It loads printer class. It will search in the internal cache. Is there any printer class object? No, not there. Comes to in-memory metadata of XML file and searches. Is there any printer class? Yes. Having bean ID P1? Yes. But any injection is enabled? No. Any factory method bean instantiation is enabled? Yes. So then what it will do, guys? Printer dot get instance it will call. When you call printer dot get instance, control comes here. Is this instance empty? Yes. Create the object, return the object. First object is created and returned, and that object is kept in internal cache. That object is kept in internal cache. Are you listening my statement, guys? Okay, second one. Factory dot get bean p1 printer dot class. Everyone please listen, guys. P1 printer dot class. Everyone please listen. Then what happens? Then what happens? It will search having bean ID P1. Is there any object in the internal cache? Yes, there. It will receive it. And we are displaying a hash code of both. Now see the second one. Factory dot get bean P2 printer dot class. Having bean ID P2. Is there any object in the internal cache? Not there. P2 not there. Then it goes to in-memory metadata of XML file. Is there any Spring Bean configuration having bean ID P2? Yes. Yes. Any what injection is enabled? No injection. Factory method is configured? Yes. So then what it will do? It will call printer dot get instance. Printer dot get instance. Control goes to get instance method of printer class. Control goes to get instance method of printer class. So now tell me, guys, Is instance null? No, already object is created. So it will return existing object. Though bean ID is different, it will return existing object. Come on, guys. Now tell me what happened. Now it will keep having P2 as the bean ID, already available object reference as the value. It will keep in the internal cache and gives to client application. So in the internal cache, two bean IDs are there in keys and both are pointing to same printer class object reference, guys. Both are pointing to same printer class object reference. I'll give the memory diagram also, don't worry. Okay, now tell me factory dot get bean P2. Hare, for P2 bean ID in the internal cache of IOC container already object reference is there, takes that reference and returns the reference. So that's why when you print same hash code will come. When you print same hash code is coming. So what should be the answer for this question, sir? If we configure the above real singleton Java classes as spring beans having different bean IDs as spring beans without enabling factory method bean instantiation. Then the IOC container creates multiple objects for singleton scope, real singleton Java classes on one per bean ID base. Java class on one per bean ID basis. Okay, let's have a look, guys. Copy this in application context.xml. In application context.xml. In client application. In client application. Yes, how does internal cache looks, guys? How does internal cache looks? Internal cache or cache of IOC container. Internal cache of IOC container. Having bean ID P1, one thing. printer class object reference. Printer class object reference. P2 printer class object reference. Now tell me guys, pointing to two different objects of printer class. Pointing to two different objects of printer class. Understanding my statement, guys? Pulitirupati Reddy, look at this. Look at this. Did I enable factory method being in instantiation? No. Did I enable factory method being instantiation? No. Okay, boss. Next. Two different objects are created, boss. Overall, two objects are created for printer class. Mr. Puli, I hope you got the clarity. Any confusion, boss? Right. I should paste output also, na? Then wait. You want output also? Just a minute. Setter injection test, guys. Yes, this is the output. Cut it, boss. Here is the output. Fine, boss. If we enable static factory method based bean instantiation, static factory method based bean instantiation while configuring singleton Java class as Spring Beans, Java class as Spring Beans, then only one object will be created. Then only one object will be created. Only one object will be created for the entire IOC container. Will be created for singleton Java class for the entire IOC container. For the entire IOC container. So now let's see, guys, what is that application context.xml, boss. This is the copy, boss. Okay. Application context.xml. Sham, I think you joined lately, boss. Please come on time. This is the discussion we discussed at 7:10. Come on, guys. Come on. Please be on time in the classroom. Look at this question, guys. Sir, IOC container can create multiple objects for singleton class even if you have a private constructor. This point we discussed at 7 o'clock itself. IOC container can access private constructor using reflection API. Okay. Please be on time. Shame on you. Application context.xml. Yeah, this is factory method bean instantiation. This is enabling factory method bean instantiation. Instantiation. Yes, boss. Okay. In client application. In client application, singleton test. Copy this. Singleton test, copy this. Right. Same thing. Pointing to. Okay. Both references points to both references point to same object of printer class. What guys? Printer class. Yes, boss. Next. Creates only one object of printer class. Yes, and I should give output also, my dear. I think I have to comment one more thing in this. These two are there. Let me comment. Singleton test was done. Yes, see this guys. This is the output. Are you getting benefit when you read the notes, guys? It is friendly, very friendly to read, na boss. Okay. Now, I think we got maximum knowledge about singletons. Any confusion about singleton, boss? Any confusion about singleton? Now I am giving conclusion. That is also as a question. When should we take Java class as singleton scope Spring Bean? Java classes as singleton scope Spring Bean. Yes, this is a now real story. In which situation we should take singleton scope, guys? So all these are interview questions, corner questions, different angles of discussion. But now I am coming to the real work. Now listen. In the following situation, we have to think about going for taking Java class as singleton scope bin Spring Bean. Right. Listen. In the following scenarios, we can take Java class as singleton class or singleton scope Spring Bean. Singleton class or singleton scope Spring Bean. Singleton class, non-spring environment. Singleton scope Spring Bean, spring environment. Yes, this is the common answer for both, guys. Number one, if class or Spring Bean is not having state, class or Spring Bean is not having state. Okay, I'll ask one question. I have a class without any properties. I created 100 objects. Come on, come on. I created 100 objects. So all objects not having state, but 100 objects are created. Wastage of memory or not? Come on, guys. Create one object and use it for multiple times. Create one object and use it for multiple times. I hope you convinced it, my dear. B. If class is having, class or Spring Bean is having read-only state, having just read-only state, or having only read-only state, read-only state. Final variables, boss. Final variables. Final variables are effectively final. Though I have not taken, they look like a final. Effectively final. Now tell me, guys, class is having 3 final variables whose data is fixed. I created 1,000 objects. Now tell me, all 1,000 objects will have same data, na boss? Same fixed data. All 1,000 objects will have same fixed data. What do you say, guys? So multiple requests there, what happens? Multiple requests will use same object. Multiple requests coming to servlet container is using single object of servlet class. Now, any problem? Sukant ji, study your basics properly. if multiple objects are acting on single object, and when object is not having state, when object is having read-only state, where is the question of getting multi-threading issues? Multi-threading issues will come into picture when objects are having state. Now my objects are not having state, my objects are having read-only state. Is there any problem of getting multi-threading issues? Are you listening my statement, boss? Object without state, object with read-only state are always thread safe. By default, thread safe. I'll write that point also. Let me finish this one first. Tell me, 1,000 objects created for a class having same fixed state. Same fixed state, guys. Now tell me, boss. Waste of memory or not? Wastage of memory or not? Speak out, my dear. Speak out. So create one object and use it for multiple times. Come on, guys. Number C. If class or Spring Bean is having shareable state across the multiple other classes of the application in synchronized environment. In synchronized environment. Come on, guys. If class or Spring Bean is having shareable state across the multiple other classes of application in synchronized environment. Suppose I have a cache. Cache having countries. Cache having countries information. Cache having hospitals information. I developed one class acting as a cache boss, acting as a cache. The moment application started, it should hold countries. The moment application started, it should hold countries. Now listen. Now listen. Those countries are required in one request or all request. All requests. Those countries are required in one service class or multiple service classes. You are not active, boss. You are not active. One service class or multiple service classes. Definitely in multiple service classes. So it's better to keep them. It's better to keep them in a cache or not. And if you are developing that cache as a Java class, we have to develop it as a singleton class. You have to develop it as a singleton class. Don't worry, in future we will implement this one practically. Don't worry about it. If class or Spring Bean is having shareable state across the multiple other classes of application in synchronized environment, so then we will go for what, guys? Then we will go for what? Taking that class as a singleton class. Singleton class. Okay. Okay. If we develop caching logic in a Java class, then we can take that class as singleton Java class. Singleton Java class. Okay, single line statement, guys. When class is having no state, read-only state, or readable state, no state or read-only state or readable state, you can happily take Java class as singleton class. You can happily configure that Spring Bean class as a singleton scope Spring Bean. I think everyone got the basic idea, boss. Right. Okay, now tell me note. Object with no state and object with read-only state. Read-only state or thread safe by default. Thread safe by default. Okay, boss. Object with state. Object with state. Normal state. Normal state means which can be modified. Modified. Normal state is not thread safe by default. Is not thread safe by default. So we need to use synchronization concepts. Synchronization concepts to achieve thread safety. To achieve thread safety. Okay, I'll give one small example to understand this line, boss. To understand this line. Listen, everyone. One toy is there with without any sensitive items. One toy is there without any sensitive items. And 10 kids are playing with that toy. 10 kids are playing with that toy at a time. Do you think toy will be damaged when toy is not having any sensitive items to break? No. Are you getting my point there? When toy is not having any sensitive items to break, even though 10 kids are playing with that toy parallelly, simultaneously, do you think any damage will come for the toy, boss? No, will not come. Will not come. Are you understanding my point? So, object without state is thread safe. Okay, now listen. Toy is there. Toy is there with fixed metal metal items. Toy is there with fixed metal or iron items. That means read only. No one can remove you because they are metal items. Come on, guys. So 10 kids are playing with the toy. 10 kids are playing with the toy. Since items are metal items, do you think any damage will come, guys? Do you think any damage will come, guys? No. No damage will come. Right, super, boss. Okay. Normal toy is there with sensitive items, boss. Normal toy with sensitive items is there. 10 kids are playing with the toy at a time or simultaneously. Definitely damage will be there, right? Definitely damage will be there. No, I am allowing kid by kid to play with the toy. One kid at a time to play with the toy. Now toy is again what? Safe or not? Toy is again safe or not? Apply the same theory here. Toy without any sensitive items. Multiple kids are playing. Thread safe. Object without state. Thread safe. Toy. Tell me, come on. With permanent fixed metal items. Multiple kids are playing at a time. Safe. Okay. Object with what? Object with read only state. Read only state. Are you understanding my point? Object with read only state is also thread safe, guys. Okay. Toy with normal data, which is sensitive data. But I am allowing one kid at a time to play with the toy. So now tell me, object is thread safe or not? So, okay. Object with a normal state, but we are using that object in synchronization environment. That means we are allowing one thread at a time onto the object. Definitely object is thread safe or not? Yes, boss. Yes. Okay, now let me conclude this. Generally, in our spring projects, please focus in our spring projects. Data source class contains contains uh, contains contains data source class contains fixed state, nothing but JDBC properties, guys. JDBC properties. Next, DAO, service, and controller classes contains, yeah, classes contain effectively final effectively final state effectively final state. So we generally configure them as singleton Java, singleton scope Spring Beans, singleton scope Spring Beans, guys. First of all, let's take data source, guys. In the data source, what we inject was JDBC properties. Tell me, guys, as long as database is not changing, they are fixed and forever same, na? They are fixed and forever same, na? Come on. They are fixed and forever same. What do you say, guys, my dears? So indirectly, effectively read-only state is there, na? Yeah. When you are configuring Java class as Spring Bean, who is having effectively read-only state, so it's better to take singleton scope or not? Convinced or not? In real-time projects, we take data sources, DAO, service, controller classes as singleton scope Spring Beans. I'm trying to convince that one, Babu. Okay, now tell me, guys. DAO contains what? Data source injection. Do you think the data of the data source object will change time to time, minute to minute, request to request? So indirectly, data source injected to DAO is effectively final or not? Effectively read only or not? If not, if you don't take final also, but effectively looking like a final or not, come on. Effectively looking final or not? I want reply. Does not change request to request, does not change execution to execution, effectively final. So can I take it as a read singleton scope bin, guys? Similarly, DAO injected to service, same story. Similarly, service injected to controller, same story. The state is what? Effectively final, effectively read only. That's the reason in real time, controller, service, DAO classes, and data source classes will be taken as singleton classes. Will be taken as singleton classes. At least now you understood why I introduced mini project, why I introduced singleton Java class, so that we can learn entire subject with a project perspective. Everyone will learn singleton scope. It creates one object, one object. Where did you use singleton in your project? No answer. But now we are in a position to tell where to use a singleton scope in real projects or not. Come on, come on. I think you got the best singleton scope knowledge, boss. I hope you convinced it with me. Shall I move to next scope, guys? Scope is equal to prototype. Scope is equal to prototype. See, my style of teaching is depth discussions, boss. So to bear me from your side also, little bit of hard work is required. I hope are you feeling it? Sir, if I give another real-time example also, another project related data source DAO service controller class should be taken as what? Singleton. In any project, these layers related classes will be configured as singleton scope beans. Because real time means I have to talk project. In project means layered application. So in any layered application, any project, the main components will be taken as singleton scope Spring Beans. Right, guys. Now tell me, guys, next scope. Now today your activeness is less, boss. That's what I'm worried. Like yesterday and other day, you are not so excited to listen the concepts. Either you are not listening class, or you are worried about whether sir will check my assignment or not. I will definitely check. Don't worry about it. Okay, good reminder. So give me 5 minutes time, guys. 5 minutes. I don't take much time. I don't take much time. It's not heavy topic. It's very light topic. Bhargav Kammu. Bhargav Kammu. Bhargav Kammu. Can you respond in the chat box? Tell me your email ID. Bhargav Kammu, tell me your email ID. Please tell your email ID, Mr. Bhargav Kammu. Did you submit the assignment? Did you submit the assignment? Not submitted. Okay. Right. No. I'll pick up the people randomly. Okay. Dirty fellow one. I have given 3 days time and asked to complete one mini project and you are not able to complete. It's not going to work out, boss. You have to be, and now people are leaving the meeting. I know that. So let them leave, not a problem. Deepa M, can you respond in the chat box? Deepa M. Deepa M, can you respond in the chat box? Deepa M. Deepa M, can you respond in the chat box? Super. Next. Deepali. Deepali, can you respond in the chat box? Mr. Durga, can you respond in the chat box? Durga, can you respond in the chat box? G2C. G2C, can you respond in the chat box? Guys, if this is the case, this is not going to work out. Mahesh Reddy. Mayur Kamarkar, can you respond in the chat box? Mayur Kamarkar, can you respond in the chat box? Payal, can you respond in the chat box? Rahul, can you respond in the chat box? Not even one fellow submitted. Ramanji, can you respond in the chat box? Mr. Ramanji. Okay. Tomorrow I will check early in the morning, 7 a.m. I will remove all the fellows from the meeting. One day if I cancel the class name, then they will come into track. Fine. Let's continue the subject. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 itself, I will check. And I will remove them from whole meeting. If I give punishment 1-2 days, then you will be on the track. See, boss, without assessment, no learning is learning. When I give assignment, you have to respond. That helps me to know how we are following. That helps to know you, assess yourself, judge yourself. Dirty fellows. Yes. Now let's go for scope is equal to prototype, guys. IOC container creates Spring Bean class object. Creates separate Spring Bean class object for every factory.getBean method call. GetBean method call. For every factory.getBean method call. For every factory.getBean method call. Yes, boss. For every factory.getBean method call. Next one is what? IOC container does not keep these Spring Bean class objects in the internal cache of IOC container. In the internal cache of IOC container. Since not kept in the internal cache of IOC container, since there is no reusability for object, every time new object will be created. What do you say, guys? Okay. It is not default scope. It is not default Spring Bean scope. Okay, guys. Swaraz, you call factory.getBean method for 10 times, having same bean ID. 10 objects will be created. IOC container creates separate Spring Bean class object for every factory.getBean method call. What is there in that to understand, worst fellow? It is not default to Spring Bean scope. And it is nowhere related to prototype design pattern. There is a design pattern called prototype, guys. This is nowhere related to prototype design pattern. That's it. Okay. It is nowhere related to prototype design pattern. Okay. Actually, prototype design pattern says create a new object using clone process. Create a new object using existing object using cloning process. Okay, guys. This is the prototype design pattern. Sorry. So every new object for Spring Bean class will be created by IOC container using reflection API. So not by using cloning process. So the prototype scope is nowhere related to prototype design pattern. At least now you got the clarity, guys. IOC container creates separate Spring. Every new object of Spring Bean class will be created by IOC container using reflection API, not by using cloning process. So the prototype scope is nowhere related to prototype design pattern. Understanding my point? IOC container creates separate Spring Bean class object. Yes, this is mistake. Separate Spring Bean class object for every factory.getBean method call. Yes, boss. Everyone got the clarity? Now you observe this. You come to this one, boss. You come to this. Comment this printer story. I'll come to printer story later. Okay. Now, how many times wish message generator is there, guys? 2 times. What is the default scope is singleton. Here I am taking prototype. Here also I am taking, no, only 1 time I configured. Not even 2 times. Only 1 time I configured, guys. So 1 time I configured. Setter injection test, guys. Set rejection test, guys. Let it be set rejection test, guys. With the same bean ID, 2 times method is called. Are you noticing it, guys? With the same bean ID, 2 times method is called. Factory.getBean method is called 2 times with the same bean ID. Are we observing that point? Yes. Okay, now you observe this. Set rejection test.java. How many objects? 1, 2. What are the hash codes? 688961. How it is possible, sir? Why it is not possible? When first object, when firstly created object is not kept in internal cache, when you call factory.getBean second time, so no object is available in the internal cache. Since not available, happily second object will be created or not? Happily second object will be created or not? Come on. You call factory.getBean method for 100 times. 100 objects will be created. 200 times, 200 objects will be created. Why? No object will be kept in internal scope if the scope is what? Prototype. So that no reusability of existing object. Every time fresh object will be created. See this? Here also false is coming, saying that both are not pointing to same object. I hope you realize it that, guys. In application context.xml, where to use, how to use, I will talk. First, concentrate on my fundamentals. Yes, boss. Next, client application. Here is my client application, boss. Gives different hash codes. Okay. Swaraz, if you don't give any scope in real time, that is default scope is singleton. So most of the majority of classes in Spring we will take as a singleton. That's the reason you never feel in real time process scope is not used. But they are also having scope, that is what? Singleton scope. Come on. Right. Now tell me here, gives false. Gives false. You want to see the output? Sir, first check the scope, Ra Babu. First check the scope. The moment it sees the scope as what? Prototype, it will never worried about going to IOC container. It never worries about going to IOC container internal cache. When scope is prototype, why it will go to IOC container internal cache? Okay. Note. If the Spring Bean scope is prototype, then the factory.getBean method does not check in IOC container for the availability of object. Before creating new object. For the availability of object before creating new object. The factory.getBean method does not check in IOC container internal cache. That's better one. Internal cache for the availability of the object Okay, before creating new object. Is that clear, guys? Come on, come on. Does it keeps the object in internal cache? No, this is practically proved here. This is practically proved here. There is no internal cache involvement if the scope is prototype. For example, look at the flow now. Look at the flow now. Generator factory dot get bin WMG. Come on. Factory dot get bin WMG. Okay. Takes the bin ID. Listen. Takes the bin ID. First searches in internal cache. Listen. Searches in internal cache. Please concentrate. Searches in not found. Not found. Then goes to what? Then goes to what? In-memory metadata of Spring Bean configuration file. Found class with scope prototype. Found class with scope prototype. And observe setter injection. First creates main class object, then creates dependent class object, assigns dependent class object to target class object. Come on. Target class object, and keeps both dependent and target class objects in internal cache. But problem is wish message generator is having prototype scope. It won't keep wish message generator object in the internal cache, but it keeps a date class object in the internal cache. Are you listening my statement, guys? Keeps date class object in the internal cache, but does not keep wish message generator class object in the internal cache. And returns what? Wish message generator object directly to the client application. Second time called, guys. Second time called. Again searches in the internal cache. Any object is available? Not available. Any object is available? Not available. Again go to the same story. Again goes to the same story. Okay, observes prototype scope, loads the class, creates the object, and injects already available date class object. Already available date class object. Why? Because it can collect date class object from internal cache, right? Already available date class object, and returns new object created for what? Wish message generator back to client application. Simply back to client application. Understanding my statement? So I'm removing this statement because it may confuse you a little bit. So my intention of saying that statement is what? After creating object, okay, boss. Manazi, you ask your question. I am not at all getting your question. Check your English statement once. Okay, boss. For every bean ID, for every call, for every bean ID, for every call, it will create separate object. For every bean ID, for every factory.getBean method call, it will create separate object. Are you listening my statement, boss? If the scope is prototype, the IOC container creates Swaraz date class scope is singleton. That's why it is keeping. If the scope is prototype, IOC container creates new object for Spring Bean class. New object for Spring Bean class for every bean ID and also for Also for every factory dot get bean method call. Get bean method call. Method call. Yes, some more discussions are left with respect to prototype scope. Lot of discussions are there. Please, I hope you are comfortable with the Spring Bean scopes, guys. Feeling interesting, easy, boring, heavy. Choose one thing. Interesting, easy, boring. Yes, many people are saying interesting. Soumya, heavy means you check your core Java fundamentals, check how many applications you practiced so far. The people who are saying heavy means your knowledge of core Java is very low. Because what I am talking is purely core Java. And one more request, guys. First listen, digest, then start thinking, framing questions. Some people, by listening off statement, they are framing questions. Swaraz, Swaraz, see the storyboard, then automatically you will get the idea. Sanket Kalpande, Salket, already I have given one assignment of mini project. First complete it, worst fellow. Yes, in one Spring Bean configuration file, we can take different beans with different scopes. Possible. Meenakshi, while developing service locator, factory method bean instantiation is good. Yes. Yes, we are going to study all this thing through annotations also. Okay. Please stop telling system is not ready, hard disk crashed, X problem, Y problem. Are you ready to tell same reasons after joining in the company? You feel that I am your team leader, I have given task to you people. Please stop telling childhood stories. I want output. I want code to be completed. Yes, Devash Pandey WebSocket protocol right now not picked up, guys. Still proper implementation is not there. Right. Sonu Gupta. In DAO class, we inject a data source, but the data of the data source object will not change time to time. So indirectly, effectively final. In service, we inject DAO. In controller, we inject service. So their data also will not change time to time. Indirectly, effectively final, right? Effectively final. Indirectly, effectively final. Are you understanding my statement? So that's the reason we have taken them as singleton scope Spring Beans. Pooja Patkogar, you see index column, invalid index, you are giving wrong number while processing the result set. You are giving wrong number in get triplex method while processing the result set. Ashish, yes. Ashish, yes, you left the meeting in the fear of checking assignment. That's why you lost the content. Please read the document. Don't show your talent in front of me. I only locked the meeting. Ashish, you have red-handedly caught. You left the meeting in the fear of showing. That's why I locked the meeting. Right, boss? Thank you. Have a nice time. Array data means variables, Nara Babu. Without knowing what is data, you are attending Springa. Who is this worst fellow? Vivek Shahare. DAO service class data means variables declared in DAO class and service classes. Without knowing what is state, what is data, why are you sitting in Spring classes? Waste fellows. Beneath, that's why we don't take every bean as prototype, na? Guys, without knowing state and behavior, why are you coming to Spring? Come on, guys. Data state means variables of the class. Variables of the class is called data state. For example, controller you take. This is not called state. This is called state. DAO. This is called state. This is called state. Observe DAO. Queries are there in final. Data source is there, but that will not change its data time to time. So though they are not taken as final, but effectively final are not. That's the reason singleton scope. Clear, guys? Data state means variables declared in the class. Come on, guys. How did you complete core Java without having knowledge of what is data, what is state, what is behavior? Please. Fine. Thank you, guys. Have a nice time. We'll meet tomorrow.